Hey everyone, how you doing today? So we got this 2007 Jeep Wrangler, and it has a misfire, and it's not a bad misfire. You can't hardly even feel it. It's more at idle than it is at higher RPM, but it does bring the check engine light on eventually, and it prevents us from getting it inspected. So the one thing I want to do, it does have new plugs and wires on it. This Jeep's got 290,000 miles on it. And let me show you what the plugs look like that came out of it. I've shown these before. I actually did a plug change on this. It's probably been about a year ago. But I don't know if you can see that that center electrode is completely eroded away. There's probably about 150, 160 thousandths gap there. Now on this plug, you can see the outer electrode is very eroded to where it's just paper thin. Now, the funny thing about this, the reason those plugs are like that, there was 3 of them that was like this, and 3 of them that was like this one. And the reason is, this is what they call a waste spark system. If you look right here on the coil, you can see you've got 3 and 6, 1 and 4, and 5 and 2. Well, when this coil fires, both of these actually fire. And when that happens, the arc on one plug jumps from the center electrode to the outer, and then on the other plug, it jumps from the outer to the inner. And so they erode opposite of one another. But the effect is the same. You still get a spark, and it still ignites the fuel. Anyway, that's the plug deal. So I put new plugs and wires on this probably about a year ago. It didn't change anything. We wasn't getting the check engine light on, but it did have the occasional misfire still. So the wires are new, plugs are new. So the one thing I want to check before I do really anything else, I want to check the injectors. So we're going to do an injector balance test. And now, some scan tools, well, it's not the scan tool, some manufacturers build into their system a fuel injector balance test that you can do by hooking up a pressure gauge to the fuel rail, and on this one it's going to be right here, and then you use the scan tool to initiate the injector pulse that is exact for each injector that you do. What you do is you compare the pressure drop that each injector has, and you compare them to one another. And if you have an injector that drops more than the others, then that's a leaking injector. If you have an injector that doesn't drop near as much as the others, then that injector's partially plugged. It's not able to flow the amount of fuel that the others are flowing. So what you want is pretty much a straight across the board, even pressure drop. And when I say even, it will be to the pound. They are that precise. You know, the pulse that it gives it is an exact pulse, and yeah, it's a very accurate way to do it. The problem with this particular vehicle is Jeep did not build that into the system, so you've got to use a kind of a universal tester. We're going to use this. I've had this for probably about 35 years. It's made by OTC. It's just a little box. You hook it to the battery, then the other side hooks to the injector. On some cars, if you can get to the injectors, which you can't do on this one, so we're going to have to find a connector that they run through. You just plug right onto you unplug the injector and you plug right onto it. I think I've actually got a video. Yeah, I'll have to find the video, and I'll put it up in the right corner of the screen of another car that I used this tester on. So I'm going to get the wiring diagram. We're going to figure out what connector we need to go to. We'll get this hooked up. We will use the scan tool to energize the fuel pump. Now, you don't have to use a scan tool. You can literally turn the key on and turn the key off. And what you're doing is you're pressurizing the system, and then when you turn the key off, you're killing the fuel pump, and you're letting it come to a stabilized state, and then you do your test. Anyway, let me get all hooked up here, figure all this out, and I'll turn the camera back on. Okay, so here's the wiring diagram. Here's the injectors. They share a common power wire, and it's not showing it right here in the picture. For some reason, that wire was a different color, and maybe it was white. I don't know, but the printer didn't print it for some reason. Anyway, all 6 of these injectors share a common power wire going to the ASD relay output. So we'll definitely tap into that wire, and then each one will have a driver that the computer grounds, and that's what energizes the injector. Now this is the connector that it goes to, or goes through rather, C102. So if you look at cavity 1, fused ASD relay output, cavity 1 is this big one right here. Then if you look at injector 1, 2, 3, and 4, we've got basically 9, 10, 11, and 12 for those injectors. So 9, 10, 11, 12. So I'm guessing 20 is going to be another one. Okay, 20 is injector 5. And then injector 6 is 16. Now 16 is, if that is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 is this center one right here, this smaller pin. Kind of weird that they did it like that. But anyway, we just got to find this connector. I think I've spotted it. If you look at that connector, let me get a picture of it over here. What you got these 3 on each side, then you've got a row here and a row here. Now there's 2 connectors here. At first I thought it was this one, but if you look, this one's got those 3 there, but it's also got another 3 wires up here, or a top row. But if you look at this one, it's exactly the way the picture shows. So I'm pretty sure that this is the right connector. In fact, it's showing here brown and white for cavity 1. Cavity 1, let's see if this is the handle. Cavity 1 is right here. So if this is the handle, I think that right there is going to be the wire. To open this up, I think this one hand doesn't help, guys. Okay, there we go. You push down, I'll show you on this connector. You push down on this little tab right there, and then you pull up on this handle, and it'll should cam out of there. There we go. And that's what we got. So 1 is going to be this one here. So basically the first one we're going to do, I want to do injector 1. We'll just go in order. Injector 1 is going to be 12. 12 and 1. So, okay, 12 is that one. So if this one's 1, 12 is going to be right here. Now, let me show you how this hooks up. So here's the test box. Basically, you've got a switch. You can put this switch on anything. I usually just keep it in the middle. You got 1 pulse, 50 pulses, and 100 pulse. If you go to 1 pulse, that's 500 milliseconds. If you go to 50 pulses, that's 10 milliseconds. If you go to 100 pulses, that's 50 milliseconds. Or 5 milliseconds. And then to energize the injector, you just hit the button. So basically, you've got these 2 that hook to your battery, and that's what powers the box, and that's what's going to give power to the injector. Then you got a connector here that, as long as you have a Multec style connector on your injector, which is, or at least used to be, the most popular connector, this should just push right down on the injector. Now in this case we can't get to the injector, so we're going to go right here to this connector. Now this OTC unit also comes with this little pigtail just for circumstances like this. So I'm just going to peg this right into this connector, just like that. And then I'll get some pins to stick in here to get the test box hooked to the connector. Put that over there. Let me get some pins. So I've got some little pins right there that just happen to be about the same thickness as the pins that's in these connectors. So I'm going to just go straight into the front, because there's no worry of spreading the pins apart. You don't want to put too big of a pin in a female connector because you don't want to spread it apart. So that's in pins 1 and 12. Now I'm just going to push these just right on top of those, just like that. And that should give us what we need. So now this is going to pulse injector 1. So just to show you whenever I hook the power to it, I'm going to connect the red clamp to the positive, black clamp to the negative. I've got a red light. Now I've got to get a fuel pressure. Well, just to show you what this thing does, you should be able to hear the injector pulse. So I'm going to hold the camera down here by injector 1. Injector 1 is this one right here, the only one that you can kind of see. And I'm just going to hit the button. You should have heard that. We'll go to 100 pulses. And we'll go to 1 pulse. There's 1 pulse. I think I'm going to go ahead and set it on 100 pulses. Normally I do 50, but I'm going to set it on 100. Fuel injection, fuel pressure kit with the right adapter. Now here's the gauge we're going to use, and I believe it's going to be this adapter. This is probably one of the more common adapters that most of these manufacturers use. Pull the little safety off there. Pull the fuel line off slow in case it's still pressurized, because you don't want to get a face full of gas. And the way this is going to hook up, so let me get the scan tool hooked up. Alright, so let's get logged in here on the Jeep, and then we're going to find the fuel pump control, and then we're basically going to use the scan tool. I'm not going to start the engine to actuate the fuel pump. Okay, fuel pump relay control state. That's probably what we need. So if you look at the fuel pressure gauge, we are sitting at about 40 psi. I'm going to turn the fuel pump on. Now I'm going to turn it off. Now a tight system should hold fuel pressure. Now I'm seeing a little bit of drop, So that could be an injector leaking, or that could be a check valve or a fuel pressure regulator bypassing. So if it doesn't stabilize, what we'll have to do is we'll just have to hit that button at exactly the same time for all six injectors. So it does have some bleed by, and it should not have at this point. Alright, so let me go ahead and turn the fuel pump back on, because I don't think it's going to, yeah, it's still slowly bleeding by. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait till it gets to 50, and then I'm going to hit the button. And basically what you're doing is you're seeing how much pressure drop that injector is going to have after 100 pulses at 5 milliseconds each. We're going to see how much pressure drop each injector has. So I'm getting ready to hit the button. We're almost at 50 right there. Okay, so that right there is just right at 40. It's actually slightly, probably not quite 41, but 40 and a half is what we're going to call it. So let me swap our pin. So I'm going to stay, that's the wrong print. Left it right up here, didn't I? So I'm going to stay in pin 1, because that's their common fused power for all the injectors. And I'm going to go to, so we just did injector 1, we're going to go to 2, which is 11. 11 is this pin right here. So I'm going to take the pin out of 12, and I'm going to go to 11. I'm going to pressurize the fuel pump. Turn it off. And we're going to do the same thing. And what we're wanting to see is all 6 of them fall in that same pressure. If it's right pretty close to 40, I mean, if you're half a pound or even a pound off, probably okay. But if you're more than 2 or 3 pounds off, then you need to suspect that injector. Okay, there's 50. Now that one's right at, that's 42. So that one's at least 1 pound higher. So let me go ahead and go to the next injector, which is going to be 3. That's going to be 10. Pin 10. So I'm going to come out of 11, and I'm going to go to 10. Pressurize the fuel pump. Turn it off. Once you get it all set up, this is a super easy test to do, and it's very accurate. I mean, this is basically doing the same thing that the engine computer's doing when it pulses the injector. So if the injector's got a leak, if it's not completely sealing off, and this will show that. Okay, 50. That's right there, almost 42. Okay, so now I'm going to go, that was 3, we're going to go to injector 4, which is pin 9. Pin 9 is straight across from 1. Okay. I'm going to turn the fuel pump on, get us some pressure, turn it off. Let her stabilize at 50. well, as much stabilizing as we can do. Almost there. That's good right there. That's right there at 42 also. So far they're all looking good. Number one, we'll do it again just to see if, now that we've pressurized the system a few times, if it goes to 42, or if it's still about 40 and a half. So now we need to go to 5. Injector 5 is pin 20. Okay, let's pressurize the pump. Turn it off. Okay, now 42. So the only one left is injector 6, and that was 16, right? Yep, 16. 16 is that one right there. Okay, pressurize the pump. Turn it off. Now the only other thing you've got to consider as far as injectors is you might want to do this when it's cold and when it's hot. Or if your vehicle is misfiring at a certain temperature, that's when you're going to want to do this. If it's warmed up when it does it, then make sure the vehicle's warm when you do it. If it does it all the time, then it shouldn't matter. Okay, there's 50. That's right at 42. So let's do number one more time and see if we get the same result that we did the first time. It's still not too bad. Number one was 40 and a half. That's still within about 1.5 pounds of 42. So, okay. Let me make sure. Yeah, 1 and 12, right? Yep. All right. But yeah, if your vehicle does it when it's hot, do it. Make sure you do this test when your vehicle's hot. Otherwise, it might check good when it's cold, and you figure the injectors have got to be good when in fact they're not, because they change whenever they get hot. Okay, 50 right there. Yeah, yep. See, that's right at 40. So that's about a 2-pound drop. So that number one injector is passing a little bit more fuel than the other 5. Anyway, this is how you do a fuel injection balance test. This is Jeep Wrangler. This is pretty common on just about anything. If your scan tool does not have a dedicated, basically this unit here built into it, then you can buy one of these. I'll put a link to this one, and I think there's a cheaper version available also that does the same thing. So OTC is a common automotive manufacturing tooling test box type company, and then of course the Chinese have copied this box, so I'll put a link to either one. And of course you're going to need a decent gauge set, and this one has proved to be good every time I've used it. So it doesn't break the bank, and it does a good job. Anyway, I think that's about it for this video. I'm going to go ahead and take all this off and call it a day. You guys take care.